Same position. Left hand at 9 o'clock, pressing down with the thumb. Opening it a little bit deeper. Okay, my next step is going to be to pull this opening wide. And I'm going to hold my left hand in, and I'm going to use my right hand to pull towards my stomach, straight back. Again, I'm going to have the sponge in my hand so that if I need to, I can add some water. You can see there's some concentric circles that are starting to happen. I'm not raising my hands, I'm just pressing. This is a section of the pot where we a lot of times get stretch cracks. So what we do here, because I put a lot of pressure pulling that, it's kind of like bending a coil, and you see the cracks starting to happen. So what I'm going to do right here now is I'm going to go back and forth a little bit and press this clay so that I end up with a worked out bottom or base to the pot. Let me get the water out of here so you can see better. The walls right now are relatively uneven, the top rim. I'm going to ride my index finger and thumb around the edge and press down with my fingers so I can see the thickness. Right now I've got a wall that's about 1 inch thick. So now I'm going to raise the piece. Again, this is done at slow speed. I'm going to be at 3 o'clock on the clock or east on a compass. Both hands connected together here. And I'm pressing between the clay, even pressure on the inside and outside. On the side, you're going to see a ridge forming at the top of my fingers. And then as I come up the wall very gradually, that ridge of clay is going to form and start making the pot taller. My top rim is a little uneven. I'm going to press that down. More liquid here. I'm going to press against the side one more time. Even pressure between the hands. That ridge forms. Pot gets taller. Okay, that uneven top is giving me a little bit of trouble up here, so I'm going to use my needle tool. And this takes a little bit of practice to figure out and to learn to do. And I'm going to keep my hands hinged together. I'm going to press through the clay with the needle till I feel a prick on my finger. Then I'm going to lift up, and that's going to take off a whole donut shape of the top of the pot. Pay attention, it happens fast. Okay, that's my uneven top rim. A little bit of moisture. Go one more time on the raise. Nice and steady when you get to the top of the rim. Getting a little bit of a puddle in the inside, and that gets the clay softened up too much. So what I'm going to do is sponge that out of there. Even out my top rim. Now, I've basically thrown a cylinder, a straight nothing form, okay? I want to change that shape. I want to make it a little more interesting. I want this piece to bulge out from the side, okay? So what we're going to do here now is I'm going to go back again for raising, same hand position, but this time I'm going to put more pressure on the inside hand. And when I put that pressure on the inside hand, this pot is going to start bulging outward. You'll see it happen. Nice and steady, even pressure, bulging it outward, and then I'm going to let up the pressure and ride it to the top. One more time. Okay, I want to trim my top a little bit one more time. Now I want this top rim to come inward a little bit. I'm going to get my hands good and wet, and outside edge of the pot good and wet, and I'm going to neck it in. You'll see it go a little crooked here. And that closes it somewhat. Now I want the top rim of it to fold outwards. So I'm going to ride my hand to the outside of the pot, pull this top rim over. This happens fast too. Use the sponge, clean up your outsides. If you want the finger marks to stay, you can go back and put them back in one more time. Now, when I was grading your pinch pots, a lot of you guys, I told on your grade sheets that your corner was too thick, okay? And that's where the base of the pot and the wall of the pot connect. Right now, I've got a lot of clay down here at the corner. I'm going to trim this with a tool away from the side. I'm going to press this tool into the clay, straight down until you hear it dragging on the wheel, and when I hear it hit the wheel, I shut it off. I cut off this excess clay here. And a little bit of sponge work around the outside now for where I had the tool marks. And our pot is finished. The bat removes easily. You can see the shape from the outside. It's trimmed to the base. This sets overnight, okay? And overnight it will leather harden to a point where it's going to be trimmable, where we can turn it upside down and trim the foot. And we'll do that in another class period. Our cleanup section here is going to be important. First thing you do is shut off your power. Put all your tools in your bucket. Any slop clay that you have, put it all in your bucket. Do as much of this as you can sitting at the wheel. Wipe off the wheel head. Disconnect the two pieces. Pour off any of the water that you have. And these get washed in the center sink first. And the center sink is that slop sink with the pipe standing in it. Just push that off. Dump all your water in here. Your wheel gets wiped. The bat gets washed if you didn't get a pot. Your two splash pans get washed. Slop clay can go into the bucket of storage back here in the corner. And you've got your throwing for the day. Thank you very much. Gentlemen, today we're going to be filming the second half of throwing on the potter's wheel. We are going to be working on the foot. This piece was thrown and dried overnight, so it is in a leather hard stage. It came off of the bat, so it has a perfectly flat bottom. I'm checking with my fingers to determine the approximate thickness of the walls and of the bottom, so I have a clue as to what I'm doing. I'm going to be throwing this time, working this time, on the aluminum bat. I'm not going to use a black bat, okay? I want to use these concentric circles as an aid to help me out. Most important thing here is that I'm going to be turning the pot upside down and attaching it or centering it to the wheel head. The same way that I centered the clay with my hands earlier when I threw this piece, I need to make sure that this piece is accurately in the center of the pot, of the wheel head. I'm going to be using soft balls of clay, 3 of them, to hold this in place. About the size of a golf ball. We'll just set these aside for a moment. First tool that I'm going to use is going to be the needle tool again. My splash pan is installed. I don't need to wear an apron. It's not a messy job. Okay, the trimmings that are going to come off of this are going to be small. Notice that I'm always going to keep a hand on top of the pot. The centrifugal force wants to shoot this off of the bat head. I'm going to connect my hands again together and use the needle to scratch into the pot. And I'm going to shut the wheel off, turn that scratch towards where I was pointing, and move it a little bit away until I get this pot centered in the space here. Okay, right now it's centered. It's scratching all the way around. So I'm going to shut it off and use these soft chunks of clay to press it down. Make sure that you don't wiggle the pot or move it. And hold that firmly in place. The next tool that I'm going to use is a wire loop tool, but this one is rather sharp, okay? This tool is going to be used on the outside of this pot. And I'm going to work again like I did when I was throwing at 3 o'clock or east on a compass. And I'm using this tool to trim off some of the excess clay that was left at the edge. My hands are connected, and I'm scratching and scraping off the excess clay. If this is a little bit too dry, you can use your sponge with cold water and just moisten the top piece a little bit so that it trims off better. With us having a class periods, it's hard to tell how dry a piece is going to be by the time you get back to it the next day. Depending how you removed it from the wheel head, this bottom section could be very bumpy, or it could be very smooth. So you want to go ahead and make sure that it's nice and flat first. I'm using my tool sideways. Then I'm going to work on the center section, stand my tool on end, and trim off a little recessed section the way you did on all the rest of your pots. I'm moving the tool outward and gouging out that bottom to make a recessed section. Occasionally I blow at it to get all those little burrs and pieces off. Holding the tool in the same location and just moving it outward gives me those concentric circles. And notice I've always got one hand, one finger, something riding on this so that it's holding on to it. We don't want it to take off and fly off the wheel head. Many quality pieces get ruined that way. Now I'm trimming off the little scratch marks that I made. And my foot is all trimmed. Remove the chucks. Use your needle tool to potter's mark your piece. And we've got the piece trimmed. Questions? Thank you, gentlemen.